Hi, my name is Garrett Edmondson, and welcome to another one of my data warehouse and ETL videos. This video will be a little bit of a departure from my previous videos in that this one will not be as technical in nature, but will still cover a very important topic that is critical to the success of any data warehouse solution, and that is master data management. Master data management, or MDM as it's known, is of critical importance to any data warehouse project or solution. As I have stated on my slide, virtually every data warehouse solution needs an MDM component to it. A good indication that your data warehouse solution is not properly scoped is if you have not considered master data management as part of your overall data warehouse solution. Because a data warehouse that's of any acceptable size and scope will need to have master data management as a consideration. Now, there's many symptoms that would indicate that master data management is needed in some way, and I've just listed a few on the screen here. One important one here is business analysts. If they most of their day-to-day work lives revolve around downloading transactions and then into Excel and doing, let's say, for several days worth of manual manipulation on that data to be able to produce their reports, that could be an indication that some MDM work needs to be done. Another thing is what I like to call Excel hell, not because Excel is bad, but Excel spreadsheets linked together to multiple Excel spreadsheets by multiple people, and lots of manual updating of Excel spreadsheets across the whole organization in order to get any type of analytics done. This is a good indication that many of those important attributes that are critical to the business analyzing its data are not kept in the data warehouse, but are managed in separate spreadsheet held type environments. This goes for access. Many times, many departments or business units have created lots of Excel and Access databases and primarily use those outside the realm of IT because IT isn't able to respond quick enough to their demands. All these kind of symptoms, ultimately at the executive level, produce a wide variety of data inconsistencies. If your executive team is complaining because none of the reports produced by lower levels of management have consistent numbers that match, then you know that you need to think hard about having a master data management solution across the entire enterprise. And really, this is kind of the whole goal and object from a business value perspective that a data warehouse can deliver on. And so one of the most important things is master data management. If speaking from a little bit more of a technical perspective, if your ETL logic, you find yourself building lots of static lookup tables, meaning these are tables that are either populated manually or even populated from pulling data from Excel spreadsheets in order to define your dimensional attributes. If you have something like that going on, then that's a very good indication that you need an MDM solution. Same goes for your ETL process. If you have lots of hard-coded values where you're hard-coding into your case statements or something like that, if product code begins with an A, then it goes in that category. If it begins with a B, then it goes into a different category. Something along those lines. If you have a lot of that kind of logic going on, then you definitely need an MDM solution. So now that I've kind of hit a few of the symptoms, basically, what makes MDM tools a little bit differently, and Microsoft has two tools here. There is first data quality services and master data services. And so these two combine together, and they have a different focus, and they're both important for an overall MDM solution. But what happens is you have your source databases on the left-hand side here, and as part of your ETL process, your ETL will populate a MDM data store. And then with the help of your data stewards through partial automation of the cleansing and matching and conformity processes, with your data steward, the data will then be populated into your data warehouse. Now this is only, and that's why I put ETL dash dimensional data. Now this is only for dimensional data. Okay, so MDM from a data warehousing perspective deals primarily with dimensional data, not with transactional data. These tools are not designed to work with transactional data very well, which is fine because that's not their purpose. If you are having problems distinguishing between dimensional and fact data, then please go read the Kimball books or something like that to be able to model your data correctly. And so keep in mind that this basic structure is very important. Many times I see people try to implement MDM solutions, and they have the idea that somehow MDM is after the data warehouse, or even that MDM is a data entry before your sources. And for the purposes of data warehousing, it isn't. It sits in the middle. Now, there are enterprise MDM projects that I would consider that have a lot more have many more components to them, and I won't go into that here. That's a much larger discussion, but for the purposes of data warehousing, MDM tools are used to clean and conform your dimensional data, so your attributes and your hierarchies, most importantly. And I'll get a little bit more into that. And another component here that sometimes for IT people is hard to consider is that you need to have a data steward responsible for this. Now, certain processes within DQS and MDS can be automated, but there are others that need manual or human intervention, and it's not a failing on the development of these tools part, but master data management in and of itself requires human intervention from time to time to define rules and terms and things like that, or also to provide a check against cleansing and things that don't match cleansing rules and fall out. And I'll go into those kind of threshold issues. But it's very important that you have a data steward. Usually this is for organizations that don't have a dedicated role for this will end up being a business analyst, someone who is on the business side, who is very aware of the people who develop reports, very aware of the data, and so they're aware of these analytical attributes and hierarchies that are so critical for the business to be able to perform its analytics properly. So they become, by default, in many instances, the data stewards. I have several examples of using DQS for cleaning and matching type operations. DQS performs 4 primary operations. I'm going to only focus on 2, cleansing and matching your data. And these things are very closely related to each other. But for cleansing, what that is referring to, cleansing your data, is you're going to amend, remove, or enrich data that is either incorrect or incomplete. This can include correcting or enriching your data using business rules that the data stewards create. This will help in the standardization of your data. Now, while cleansing is actually changing your data, matching is simply identifying, as the name implies, simply identifying and linking data together. And so that then you can pick which of the matching pairs wins or is a logical match there. And so cleansing is actually changing your data, whereas matching is simply identifying or linking or merging your data together. So I'm going to show 2 examples in DQS of one of cleansing and then one of enriching. The first one, my cleansing, I'm going to use address data, which is some of the most difficult data to work with in terms of MDM. It has the most complex rules around it. I'm going to show how you can use outside data providers, specifically Melissa data, to cleanse your data that way. And then I'm going to demonstrate business rules and the data steward's responsibility in creating and maintaining business rules so that the data can become more consistent over time. So here I have pulled up on the screen just a sample spreadsheet, and this is a very small data set because this is just an example. But here I have some address data. And address data, particularly something like customer address data, is very difficult in many instances to work with. Typically, you have many source systems that have very inconsistent data, customer address data between them, and at some point you want to be able to consolidate these things together for performing analytics and grouping and aggregation on these customers that you have spread out throughout the entire enterprise. So this is just one very small example of that. And so here I have some address data, address, city, state, and zip, as you can tell, and it's a variety of formats and things like that. And so I'm going to use data quality services to clean this. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm not going to go over the details of all the components or how to set up data quality services. I'm going to assume that you're going to look up that information yourself, that you can read books online, go to MSDN or the data quality team, data quality services team at Microsoft, and get up to speed with all the different components. I'm going to quickly walk through the setup of this particular cleansing of this address data. And then in order just to demonstrate some basic functionality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a new knowledge base from scratch. I'm going to call this customer address. And for this domain, for this knowledge base, I'm going to create several domains, and then a composite domain to hold those domains. Now, I already know the structure of my data ahead of time, so I can do this fairly quickly. So I will have address, and I'll click a new domain for city, and a new one for state, and another one for zip. So now I've created my 4 domains that I'll need for my data set to do the cleansing on my data set. I'm also going to create a composite domain. A composite domain is just a container that contains several domains within it. It's just for help with management of these domains. So I'm going to call this address line. And what this is going to have several components to it, namely the address domain, the city domain, the state, and the zip domain. So address line will just be a container for these children domains. And it's worth noting in data quality services that domains, data quality services is a domain-based operation in terms of your data cleaning and matching and things like that. That you develop these domains, you populate them with known good data, and then you compare incoming data to those domains, and you set up rules and actions around that such that you can clean and match your data correctly. And for the purposes of this composite domain, what I'm going to do is, instead of trying to maintain internally within my organization all the correct address data, which is very hard to do since address data is constantly changing. There's constantly new cities, streets, zip codes being created, other ones being merged, things like that, and I don't want to have to spend lots of resources in my organization to maintain that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to use a third-party provider. And I've already set up the credentials and an account with Melissa Data to do this. And so once I input my account information into Data Quality Services, I can choose that Melissa Data account simply by browsing. So here I have access to my Melissa Data account. And again, I know the structure of this thing ahead of time, and so I can just simply go in here and quickly populate it. Do the mappings correctly. So here are my domains and data quality services on the right. Here, on the left here are the Melissa Data domains or fields, if you will, that I need to map to. So my address will go there. and I'm going to add the additional domain mappings as well. So I'll go city, city, state, mapped to my state domain, and then zip will be mapped to my zip domain as well. So now I have all the mappings correct. I'll pull it up. Sorry about the lack of real estate here, but it's just how it is. Can't resize this very well. So now all my domains are mapped to all the inputs on the dataset size provided by Melissa Data, and I can hit OK. And so there you go. My service provider is selected and everything is mapped out correctly. I have some options provided by Melissa Data in terms of thresholds and suggestion candidates and min confidence level. So what will happen is when it detects any possible correction it can make on the data at 90% or above, Melissa Data will automatically try to correct those records. They can suggest up to 4 suggestions, and you can change these. These are values you can change. And then min confidence level, it'll create suggestions for anything between 90 and 60%. So if it has a confidence level of between 90 and 60%, it'll make suggestions. If not, then anything below 60%, it will treat as an error. And so those things will have to be taken care of manually. And I'll show you how to do this in a few minutes. But right now, I'm finished with my domain, and I just need to publish it. So I'll publish it. Okay. So if I go back to the main page here in Data Quality Services, I can see that my new domain has been created. Now I'm going to create a new DQS project so that I can run data through my knowledge base, have it be cleansed by Melissa Data, and come back to me and give me good suggestions on how to clean it, or whether or not it was able to automatically clean some of the values. So what I'm going to do is do cust address cleaning 1. And I'm going to use my knowledge base that I created, and right here I have I'm going to be using this composite domain which contains address, city, state, and zip. The activity I'm going to do right now is cleaning, because I want to modify my data according to the standards provided by Melissa Data. So I just click next. Now all this is very manual, and it seems it's needed for the setup of initially of data quality services, but it can be pushed into integration services and have integration services automatically run through these projects. But I'm going to show you the manual way of doing things simply because that gets through all the major components of DQS, and it's a good way to demonstrate the options available in DQS. You can pull from SQL Server. I just have a pre-prepared Excel file that I will be pulling from. So here's that file, and this is my source addresses file. So I'm going to pull from that Excel. Again, you can pull from SQL Server or some other sources as well. If I want to look at that, this is just the file I showed previously with address, city, and state and zip values. You can see that some values are missing, some things are inconsistent in terms of San Antonio having no space and having a space there. Here I have boulevard and roads spelled out explicitly, but these other ones don't seem to have any indication of what the street type is there, things like that. So now the last part of this is all I have to do is I'm mapping my source columns in the Excel, in this case the Excel file, to my domain. So by doing this mapping, these are the sources, and the data will flow through my domain. It'll go up to Melissa Data Services because I set up those mappings. Melissa Data will then try to automatically clean it or make suggestions on based on its rules. And then the data can come back down. So I'm just setting up those mappings right now to my domain values, and I click Next. And so here, if you can see, I mapped everything. Now I'm in the second step, which will clean, and then I will view the results in a little bit here. So when I hit Start, it will start the process of actually going out to the source, in this case my file, uploading it to Melissa Data, and then we will see the results. It will only take a little bit of time because it's just 5 records in this case. So there we go. If you can see in the results at the bottom here, I have 2 corrected values, which is 40% of the data. I have 2 suggested values, and if you look at the bottom, I have 1 invalid record, meaning it didn't make that threshold of 60% from before. So here is kind of my results. I have several tabs going across that have different buckets of how the data was either automatically cleaned or needed suggestions or something like that. So here are in the suggested tab, I have some actual values. You'll notice that my San Antonio doesn't have a space. I don't have a zip code for this one, and so if I expand out my corrected values, you can see how Melissa Data tried to automatically correct these things. So as you can see, 3730 Blue Sky Holly, there was a space put in, and 819 Hot Wells Boulevard in San Antonio. The boulevard was shortened to BLVD, and if I go over, it was given a zip, and the zip code for the 3730, the top record there, was corrected in a standard format without the dash at the end. So this is just one example. Now, because of these corrections, the confidence level was 83%, which is below the automatic correction confidence level of 90%. And so then these became suggestions. And so then I can approve these suggestions, and I'll go ahead and do that. Again, this is when the data steward's role is so critical, because he's the one that establishes these thresholds. And so as he gets used to the data and as he gets more comfortable with the data, he'll be able to more accurately set these thresholds. And so more or less intervention will be needed in terms of being able to automatically let these records be corrected. I do, however, have one row, this one, that couldn't find a match above 60%. So this confidence level for this particular one was below 60%. Couldn't find anything, 0%. And I'll leave that as rejected. It won't go through. So here, in addition to the 2 that I just approved, I have 2 more that were automatically corrected. This 110 Del Way and 2115-8 Santa Lucia. If we see, the Santa Lucia address was corrected to the correct city, being San Antonio. And the Round Rock address, instead of being in AL, Alabama, was corrected to Round Rock, Texas. And because these corrections were at 90% or above, they were automatically corrected because the confidence level was high enough, as indicated there. Now I can, even though they're automatically corrected and I approve the bottom two, I can choose to reject them as well if needed. But I won't do that. I'll just continue forward. And now I can output to SQL Server, or I'll just choose to output to a file. Again, when you build this with integration services, you can automate most of these steps. And so you can output, let's say, those that fall below the threshold of 90% in this case that need review to a separate process that then alerts some data steward to come pull up their DQS interface here and manually go in and either approve or reject the rows that could not be automatically corrected. And the rest of the data, as long as it's automatically corrected, just flows through. And those that are approved will then, by the data steward manually, will then flow through as well to your data warehouse. But in this case, I'm just going to output the results to a CSV file. And I'm just going to call this corrected customer addresses. And I'm going to output not just the corrected values, but the data and cleaning info as well. I want to show you this because this is what gets outputted to, let's say, a SQL Server in a true end-to-end solution. This is what would be populated and what the ETL developer would have access to. And so they can know what was and what was not corrected by the DQS. So now, if I go into my folder here and I refresh, I will see my new output file here. And much of that same information that I showed you before is now available. So for instance, I have, starting on the left-hand side, the source, what the values originally were for my address domain or my address field, and then what the output or what the corrected values were. So for instance, this blue sky holly, a space was put in between sky and holly. The 819 Hot Wells Boulevard, the boulevard was then standardized as road as well, so on and so forth. In fact, for every column or domain that was corrected, there's also another one that gives a reason. So in this instance, Melissa data corrected these. And this unknown was the one that I chose to leave as rejected because it didn't match the threshold. So all three of those columns are available for every field that went through data quality services and was either corrected or not, or rejected or accepted. So you'll have the original, the output, and then the reason why for all of these. And in fact, also you'll have the confidence level. So these, the 83s were the ones I had to manually accept. These were the ones that are automatically because they're above 90%. And there's their status as well. So all these fields, additional fields, are available as output to help with the ETL process in terms of routing things in different ways to different people if needed, or to the data steward to be looked at. I hope this gives you a good idea of some of the cleaning activities and possibilities that are available with data quality services. I want to emphasize again that DQS is an absolutely critical part, that MDM is absolutely a critical part of any data warehouse solution. And in order to get clean, consistent data, these tools are of paramount importance. And so I would encourage you to learn more about these tools. I'll give a couple more demonstration of these tools in a little bit.